Tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela have escalated dramatically in 2025, building on decades of mistrust that date back to the eras of Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro. In August, the U.S. administration under Donald J. Trump doubled the reward on Maduro's head, raising it to $50 million, while labeling the alleged criminal organization Cartel de los Soles a global terrorist network. That designation increased U.S. pressure on Caracas, accompanied by a broadened strategy against drug trafficking, including authorizing the military to use force against Latin American cartels. Since September 2025, the U.S. has carried out a campaign of maritime strikes against vessels suspected of carrying narcotics, allegedly linked to Venezuelan trafficking operations. In late November 2025, the conflict took dramatic new turns. The United States has significantly increased its military presence in the Caribbean, deploying warships, marines, and aircraft near Venezuelan waters as part of an operation reportedly dubbed Operation Southern Spear. At the same time, U.S. forces have carried out at least 21 maritime strikes on vessels suspected of drug smuggling since September, resulting in more than 80 deaths. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, issued warnings about the increased danger of flying over Venezuelan airspace, citing military activity and possible GPS interference. In retaliation, the Venezuelan government revoked operating rights for several international airlines that had suspended flights. Reports have surfaced that the U.S. is preparing a new phase of operations against the Maduro government, likely including covert actions. These developments mark a sharp departure from past U.S. Venezuela policy, bringing military force, sanctions, and diplomatic isolation into a coordinated strategy. Despite the saber-rattling, there has also been a surprising overture of diplomacy. In late November 2025, Trump confirmed that he had spoken on the phone with Maduro. He characterized the call as neither well nor badly, but it came amid renewed threats and continued hostile rhetoric. However, according to media reports, the conversation included a direct ultimatum. Trump allegedly demanded that Maduro resign immediately, offering him and his family safe passage if he complied. Maduro reportedly rejected the offer, instead issuing his own conditions, including global amnesty and keeping control of the military, demands the U.S. dismissed. Even as diplomacy flickers, the risk of confrontation remains high. The U.S. has not ruled out further military action, while Caracas has threatened resistance. The rising conflict between Washington and Caracas isn't just about two countries. It reverberates across Latin America and the Caribbean, with multiple consequences. The airspace closure and fallout in global aviation has already triggered major disruptions. Several airlines were penalized, flights suspended, and aviation safety warnings issued. Regional governments and markets are on edge. Investors are watching energy markets closely, given Venezuela's historical role in global oil supply, and a destabilized Venezuela could ripple into energy and trade dynamics across the Americas. The humanitarian and migration angle remains critical. Past U.S. efforts, including mass deportations earlier in 2025, involved complex negotiations and refugee flows, which could renew under renewed conflict. The legal basis and morality of U.S. military strikes have drawn international scrutiny. Human rights organizations and some U.S. lawmakers warn that the strikes may amount to extrajudicial killings if due process isn't followed. As a result, what's happening is not just bilateral posturing. It could reshape geopolitics in the Western Hemisphere. The current moment represents one of the most volatile standoffs between the U.S. and Venezuela in decades. Several factors make it especially dangerous. The confrontation spans multiple dimensions: diplomacy, military threats, covert operations, economic sanctions, aviation interference, and humanitarian fallout, increasing the likelihood of miscalculation. The U.S. strategy appears to mix counter-narcotics goals with regime change ambitions. Whether Washington aims merely to disrupt trafficking networks or to unseat Maduro altogether remains unclear, and that ambiguity raises huge risks. Venezuela under Maduro has repeatedly threatened resistance and mobilized its militia. A land incursion or even wider military action could trigger prolonged conflict. Finally, neighboring countries and international actors may be drawn in, either through refugee influxes, economic disruption, or political realignments.